entire semester to said test. Hello everybody, my name is Peyton Beagle, and today I will be presenting on high stakes testing. Just a bit of background, I just concluded my first year teaching at St. Clair High School. This is a public high school where, obviously because we're a public school, we have state mandated testing, and I had to administer 3 different kinds of tests this year, and so that's why I'll be presenting on those. All right, what are these hard tests that I'll be presenting on today? What are the types of tests that I administered that I will be talking on today? The main one that I will be speaking on today is the EOC. I had to administer the ACT and SAT, but those are college classes that you have to test into in order to get into college. So I will not be specifically spending most of my time on them. I will be spending most of my time on the EOC. The ACT and SATs do not affect high school funding, so that's why I will not be talking about them today. I will be talking about, however, the EOC. EOC just stands for end of course. It refers to a standardized exam. It's administered at the end of a test, at the end of the semester, in order to see what the students have learned. They are created by the state, and they're required in order to graduate, and they're required for every single school. The classes that have to receive them in Missouri, that's where I teach, Algebra 2, English 2, Biology, and Government. Obviously, every school is different, but the way that these classes all shake out, they all end up being sophomore classes. So as you could imagine, 4 EOC classes for sophomores is no joke, and puts the sophomores in an interesting 2-week span. The EOC schedule for us normally goes 2 weeks long. They have normally a English and Biology week and an Algebra and Government week. So they'll have 2 weeks where the class schedules are switched. We normally have a 7-block class schedule, and they will switch to a 4-block schedule in order to give the core classes the times they need in order to test. So it throws a wrench in the school's entire flow for about 2 weeks. All right, what is good about the EOC tests? It holds teachers accountable. So obviously, it sounds intimidating to be held accountable, but it's a very good thing. You can't simply put on a documentary or play a movie and expect students to learn good enough to pass a state-mandated test. So it makes sure the teachers are up teaching content often and doing a good job, which I completely agree with and think is a great idea, because sometimes, sadly, too many teachers will get away with doing the littlest bit possible, and having EOCs in direct fruit of your labor is very important to keep these students and teachers busy. It shows what the students have learned. Our school encourages each teacher to do a pre-test and an end of semester, obviously, EOC test. So you'll do what you speculate will be on the EOC based on years past, but Every year the EOC does change, but you'll take the test that you administered last year and you will create a pretest. That way you're able to see what the students have done well on and not done well on. This is very good when it comes to seeing the before and after, because normally you see a big increase in test scores when it comes to what the students have learned over the semester. It shows what the students might need to focus on next year. One thing that we do is every year, once the EOC scores come out, the EOC is normally administered in early May or late April. It's normally about 2 weeks before the semester lets out. We won't get our test scores back until about October of the same year, but it'll be a different semester, obviously. So we normally sit down in our EOC, after we get our test scores back, we'll sit down and we'll say, okay, what questions did the students struggle on? Was it a style of question? Was it a style of answer? Was it a certain area of government, which is what I teach, that we might need to emphasize more next year? And so good things can come out of EOC testing in order to be able to see what we need to work on in the next year. Maybe next year I need to do tests where there's drop-down questions or there's short answer more, so that way I could prepare the students for the EOC test. So there is very good data that comes from these EOC classes and tests. The bad, it puts a ton of stress on the teacher. Non-EOC teachers during EOC week just walk around like they're floating on clouds because they see the stress and the wear of EOC classes on the teachers that do have to administer them, and it does add a ton of stress into an already stressful job. Administration hovers over the classes while the EOC testing is going on. As you can see from the next bullet point, it affects state funding. So if you do poorly on the EOC classes, the funding will be cut. It's not an if or but. Funding directly is correlated to those scores. So administration obviously doesn't want to do budget cuts or worry about the budget. That's a big thing that happens in our school. So administrators really hover on EOC classes, and EOC tests are a huge deal. They're so big to the point where once teachers finish the EOC prep and then take the test, most of the time those teachers don't teach for the following 2 weeks. In the last 2 weeks of school, most teachers make the EOC tests the final, and then students do not take a final or even do work after the EOC is finished. So it does kind of affect, and I would say 2 weeks off is not good for any student. If you're in school, you should be learning something. So I do think there's bad written all over that. And then this is one that is a personal pet peeve. Teachers have to go through loopholes to get the study guides. So teachers actually cannot even get the study guide to the EOC. Our assistant superintendent had to go get our EOC study guides for us, which we did not even get them in time this year for the EOC tests. DESE does not send them out until a week before, and our school had a problem getting them, so we did not even get EOC study guides. So us teachers went and looked from last year and tried to make a study guide, but the EOC test changes every single year, so we were only able to speculate what we believed would be on the test. So a test that affects school funding, jobs, and all of these other aspects, we couldn't even get a study guide to, placing tons of stress on the teacher and the students. The effects on teachers. Because of the gravity, most teachers dedicate the entire semester towards the EOC class. And like I already mentioned, as soon as it's over, so are they. They're done teaching. So the students might sit in class for 2 or 3 days or a week after EOC testing is done and simply do nothing in that class afterwards.